The next panel topic is one that has been hotly debated in trade media over the past year. To do the panel justice, we assembled what I consider to be a really fine group of panelists that represent a wide variety of perspectives. Once we did that, we were faced with finding the right person to moderate the discussion, and I sure didn't want to do that. So we decided, or I decided, that Kurt should moderate the panel. Because I think that he was the best one to handle the debate and the group that we have assembled. There's been a lot of discussion as to whether broadcasters should use ad insertion as part of their streaming and online strategy. So this panel will consider both sides, taking into consideration measurement implications, revenue opportunities, programming issues, and available resources. And as I mentioned, here to moderate the ad insertion panel is Kurt.
Thanks, Jennifer. And by the way, Toby, that was one more round for Toby. That was one of our finest Kachachkas. He nailed it, didn't he? So I guess this topic is on ad insertion. The question is it a unique opportunity that U.S. broadcasters have to sell spots to a new set of advertisers at premium prices with targeting? Or is it an annoying waste of time that leads to too many PSAs from McGruff the crime dog? So that's what we'll be discussing over the next 40 minutes. I'm going to use a presentation style that I picked up on a trip to Shanghai where you're going to do self-introductions. So let's start with Alexis and tell us about yourself and your company for a second.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. I'm Alexis, I'm the CEO of Adswizz. So I've been in digital advertising, I would say. I've been building digital advertising solutions for the last 10 years, initially in display for eBay and then video, and then eventually I started seeing the light and moved to audio. So Adswizz in a nutshell is basically providing advertising solutions. So monetization goes all the way from ad insertion, ad management to ad exchange. So if you don't work with Mike, you probably work with us.
Yeah. Mike.
Is this thing on? Mike Agovino, I'm the co-founder and COO of Triton Digital. We've been around since 2007, so 2006 actually, 7 years ago. And we're the largest provider of digital services to the audio/radio industry in the US and do business now in about 35 countries across the globe.
Great, Steve?
Steve Goldstein with Saga Communications. I'm the Executive Vice President and the Group Program Director, which has sort of morphed into more of a brand manager, content manager role as things seem to evolve and change. We are a public radio company. We have 90 radio stations, we have 8 television stations, and we have 3 state radio networks.
Tom Bender from Greater Media. I'm the general manager for the interactive part of all of the radio stations. I've been doing that for about the last 5 years, almost 6 now. And before that, I managed the Detroit cluster for way too long.
And Natalie.
I'm Natalie Swed Stone. I work for OMD USA. OMD is actually a global media company, one of the largest in the world, a division of Omnicom. I've been doing it since OMD began in 2000, as we got the biggest creative agencies to unbundle the media. We have over 30, I do the national audio, we have over 30 national clients, again, blue chip clients representing some of the greatest brands in the world. I've been buying streaming audio for these clients for 9 years. So we have some learnings in this area.
Yes, Natalie's really was one of the pioneers in the space. Well, let's start with the history. This is kind of, this whole fact that it's a question is kind of unique to the United States, I believe. Would one of you like to kind of give us an overview of how this whole topic came about as a issue or opportunity?
Sure, I guess I'll start. Can you hear me? Okay. The AFTRA union representing talent that Voices over Audio ads instituted, got over a decade ago, a set of rules that provided for dramatically increased payments for those performances if they were going to be delivered digitally or in stream. And so a little cottage industry of companies cropped up, creating technology that allowed really break replacement to occur so that broadcast streams could be simulcast up until the point of a break. The break could be replaced in totality, still in a broadcast metaphor with the entire audience hearing the same thing at the same time, regardless of who they were, where they were, and then syncing back up to the broadcast after the break. And so, you know, the first generation, if you will, of ad replacement or ad insertion technology for digital audio was really built around that need, and it's, as Kurt said, a unique need here in the U.S. because of the union rules, and that's what launched all this. So all the broadcasters got on this technology not because they were desperately anxious to chase the one-to-one digital sales opportunity and all that comes with it, but because they wanted to be compliant with a set of union rules, and they wanted to provide their listeners the opportunity to listen online.
Right. So this was a case in the U.S. alone where the advertisers were telling the radio stations, don't play my commercial to some of your listeners. Natalie?
And we had to shut down the streams for a while until we got the technology in place.
That's right, yes.
So we had management coming in and turning off streams and answering listeners who were upset.
Yeah. Now, this for the middle of the decade, Natalie, this pretty much got fixed, correct? There was a after contract that helped assuage this problem.
Well, digital is obviously embedded in everything that everybody's doing. I don't know of any advertiser who would think about creating without considering digital. So it would seem as if everything, you know, the premises that we got started with, there's been so much change that you almost have to reevaluate. I just want to add, as I sit here and listen to the first couple of speakers and sessions, you realize how complicated everything is. And I think we tend to simplify and think about agencies as one, for example. It's very complex what we do, what you do, what everybody's doing today. And again, this is just an example of how far we've come and how much further we have to go, and how we need to keep reinventing and being nimble and flexible as we move forward.
Kurt, she's right. It's complicated. And every time you peel back the onion, you end up with another trouble spot. I was at a meeting last week with SAG and AFTRA that was put together by Erica Farber and the RAB. And at the meeting were representatives from Entercom and Cox and Clear Channel, CBS, our company. And it was the first time that AFTRA and radio had ever gotten together to discuss any of these streaming issues. And what we learned was complicated and interesting all at the same time. Their assumption was, hey, you've got your terrestrial signals, that's all great, business is fine, and now you've got this whole new avenue to make money called the internet, so we're going to upcharge. That's what we're going to do. And it's called a move-over fee, whatever that means. And AFTRA does not keep track of what agencies do and what talent does. They just set the rates in the contract. So it's up to the agencies to determine whether they're going to pay the rights fee, the move-over fee. And so now we've got this huge disconnect because there is no umpire, there is nobody keeping track of all of these things. So we, as radio broadcasters, have no idea whether we're compliant or not, which necessitates us covering the spots. Now, if you can figure all that out and come to some kind of conclusion, then we need you badly because it has so many trouble spots in it. And there is hopefully a good outcome here. AFTRA said, wow, we had no idea. We are open to having a discussion on all of this. So at the end of the day, shame on radio for not getting in front of AFTRA, and AFTRA for not getting in front of radio to learn about each other's business.
Now, Alexis, you do a lot of work internationally with Adswizz. Are there any other regions that are facing the same issue?
Not really, not the same kind of issues. There is Switzerland and Australia that have almost the opposite issue where you have to do simulcast. You can't really replace ads. But this is kind of unique to the US. In a way, it really played against the industry in a way, because CPMs are much lower, because really people were, in a way, forced to replace all the ads very early on, instead of really embracing the power of digital, being able to deliver a customized experience, being able to get higher CPM, because you have multimedia campaigns, because you're able to target very precisely. And because of all that, what we see today is that a CPM in the US on average is about a third of what you would get in most countries in Europe, for example.
And that's, I'm sorry, why is the CPM higher?
It's for different reasons. First of all, from an advertiser standpoint, being able to third-party track, to be able to integrate directly into their system, to be able to do multimedia, to be able to target people based on who they are and not based on where they listen or things like that, is actually very powerful. So what we hear from agencies, what we hear from advertisers, they want to be able to really use digital radio as another media within their panel. They don't want to treat that as something different, with different rules, different systems, etc. They want to be able to retrack it in the same way, target it in the same way. And that's what digital offers. The second reason is that because of the personalization element, you can actually really start to tailor the advertising to the right people. I mean, today, in a way, in your blended CPM, you end up paying less because you're going to reach half of the people that you don't necessarily want to reach, which is also annoying, by the way, for the listener. And what targeting does, what digital does, is that you can really target the experience to the people who should receive it, and not just the advertising experience, but also even the stream experience. When you would start, for example, deciding that your new listeners wouldn't get any ad because you really want to hook them up, or you would decide that loyal listeners would get fewer ads because you want to really retain them, but casual listeners would get more ads, et cetera, et cetera.
Ah.
So those are things that in a way, US industry hasn't been able to tap into because of the right management issue.
Tom, where has Greater Media ended up on this at least at the moment?
At the moment, we continue to insert, and we insert a commercial load online that generally is lighter than the load from the broadcast. And additionally, we insert film music as seamlessly as we can to attempt to create a better listening experience for the online listener.
Wow. Now, are you doing that with actual playlist material and timed to match the spots you're covering? You gotta find a lot of 2.5-minute and 3-minute.
You do, except that the system will buffer, so you can get a play out of a 5-minute record.
It's a big win for the Turtles. I think you're getting a lot of airplay. WRIF.
Yeah, right. But you can do that not from playlists, but selected songs that programming has inserted.
Okay. And the spots you're inserting, do they tend to be local advertisers or
Yes.
national? Okay.
Yes.
And are they buying it? Are they the same advertisers who are on air, or different?
Depending on the selling effort of the location, and it's been a slightly different experience in each one of our areas. The vast majority of material is local upsell on a flat rate, and that has created either good demand, and so they can sell out 3 or 4 units a break with great regularity, or it's created a lack of demand and more 5-minute records.
Oh, okay. Now, I mean, Natalie, next after Steve, which Steve, Saga has kind of taken an opposite approach, correct, at the moment?
Correct. We spent a lot of time discussing it. It was not a casual decision. We operate in typically medium and smaller markets. Our effort to monetize the commercials on the internet stream were difficult. We weren't making a lot of money there. It was great for a funeral home in Milwaukee. They were on every other break. Really enhances the listening experience. And being, yeah, people were dying to get in. New morning show, available in your market. So we had a number of factors that were causing us to wonder about all the effort we were placing behind it. So not a lot of revenue, not a good listener experience. Traffic was creating another log. We are mostly local. We're about 85% local because we're in medium and smaller markets. We did some homework. We talked to agencies all over the country. We found out that many of them were signing the move-over fees, but nobody knew that. And so we decided to go to 100% simulcast of our stream, of our terrestrial signal, rather, to improve the listener experience. And the notion being, hey, a lot of people say in the office environment they don't have a radio at their desk anymore. They have a computer, and we wanted to give them the same experience as if they were listening on the radio. So it was somewhat of an organic process, and that's where we ended up.
Now, Natalie, as someone who's buying radio nationally, and as you mentioned, it's a very complex effort. What is your personal preference on
Okay,
this?
so I think we need to think about it in a couple of ways. I think to date, we've taken streaming and put it in a streaming ecosystem. And so Triton, for example, would be able to aggregate all of this streaming inventory, and we think it's commoditized, and you sell it that way. What Saga is doing is taking the streaming and putting it back together with the broadcast, which makes it part of the audio spectrum or ecosystem, which we as an agency don't want disparate, again, you can call them silos if you want. We don't want disparate pieces. We've taken a medium and cut it apart at a time when we're trying to bring it together and pair that up with other media, such as video, audio, print, digital, all the other things going on, mobile and social. We live in a world that includes all of it. I know we're here and we get to be myopic and we think about our piece or our one station, but really, in terms of the complexity, the measurement should be, we should ideally, we've talked about this for a while, have measurement across channels, media, where we can, tell the client, and the client can easily decipher, where they're winning and where they're not. So I think it needs to be flexible. I understand that there are going to be times when we want to look at streaming all at once, and it's really its own medium. But that hasn't been the case because it's been small. And then we separate the broadcast streams, which is really what this panel is about, versus the pure play. And obviously, the pure play is changing what happens on air, because you can't have the same amount of clutter on air if you want to compete with the personalization and reduced clutter of the pure play. So this discussion of covering the spots makes no sense to me at all, because from my vantage point, I want to know what the content is, what my position is, and we have had some accountability issues because we don't know what we're buying. It's hard enough to figure out what you're buying on each station when you make a national buy. So, these are some of our issues. I'm not saying that we don't want, to buy streaming on its own or pure play and broadcast together, but we also want to be able to look at the total radio station or radio audio world on its own. So again, that's why I said complex, and that's why I said nimble and flexible, because I think ultimately we're going to have to get to a place where you can customize and pick and choose exactly which elements you want. I know it's not easy because right now everybody wants things to be fixed and standardized, but that's not where we're headed.
Okay. Mike, you've had a career in sales, and now you're running a tech-oriented firm. What's your vision for this? Where do you hope this will play out in a few years?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a migration of audience from the one-to-many broadcast delivery to the one-to-one IP delivery. As we track things today, as you can best, sort of piece it together, I'd say that about 12% of the overall ad-supported audio listening in the U.S. is on the digital side. And we started measuring this space about 4 years ago, and at the point we started measuring the space, about 3/4 of the audience was on the broadcast side, so listening to the digital streams of broadcast radio. And as we track it today, it's nearly inverted, and over 70% of the listening is to the digital side of the market. And the monetization, while listener for listener is still growing into its shoes, the digital side is monetizing at a much stronger rate than the terrestrial side is, and they're monetizing at that larger rate because they know a heck of a lot more about the audience, the context they are in. They are able to slice and dice that audience in many different ways to achieve advertisers' goals. And while everybody in the room makes money with different forms of digital video display as well as audio, the room, I think anyway, primarily comes from an audio background and is used to fighting a battle to win audience presenting audio content. And strip away Clear Channel from the pack, and the rest of the broadcast radio world has not grown digital audio audience over the past 3 years at all. Mileage may vary company to company, but overall, it's a flat line. And so, no wonder why you go from 70% of the market to less than 30% of the market. And so, this discussion and this panel, I almost think at reign number, what is it, Kurt?
It's like our 20th, maybe.
Our 20th. At reign number 20, there shouldn't be such a panel. That the thought that this is even a conversation or consideration is insanity to me. You as content creators are being delivered technology that allows you to use your skills and do things competitively against folks coming at it from purely the digital side. The advantage should be to you if you're actually devoted to going after audience. And a bunch of decisions made in a point in time based upon technology frozen in that point in time, to me is short-sighted. The technology is moving very fast. The ability for you to deliver not only a one-to-one advertising, but a one-to-one content experience. There's no difference between inserting an ad and inserting content. They are one and the same thing. Your ability to know everything about the end user you want to know sits right in front of you. So your ability to deliver a customized experience for that end user and compete heavily for audiences is at your fingertips. I think the thing that's kept everybody off of it, Clear Channel made a very big move that hopefully y'all took notice of last week with the deal with WMG. I think they're signaling for the first time to the folks in this room that it's all media, and they don't want to try and dictate to the audience which channel they should access their content on. They want to deliver to all channels using the best of the opportunity in that channel. And so, for me, I understand a small market radio group with 50, 100, 150 listeners on the other end of a live stream not being able to rationalize a business model around selling 150 listeners at a time. But the beauty of digital, and look at every other ad form of digital, is technology democratizes the market. The little guy has every bit as large an opportunity to compete listener for listener as the largest guys do. Companies like ours are enabling that every day, and to retreat from this rather than forge forward after it, to me, makes zero sense.
By the way, on the subject of the Warner Music Group deal, Brian LeCamp from iHeart and Clear Channel is here, and we'll be on a panel at 4:40 today. And hopefully, Brian, you can, it's a little bit off topic, but I know we all want to hear you talk about that for a couple of minutes.
He's promised to give all the details, I think.
Well, now something a new factor that comes into this discussion in the last year or so is Arbitron, and how their rules on how they report station versus stream is affected by your decisions on ad insertion. Correct? Would one of you who feels up to speed like to talk about that for a little bit?
Can I just comment on something?
Yes.
So the fact that it's gone from, it's broadcast revenue is now 30%, I mean, that tells us something. But Mike, I agree with you that in the future, everything's going to be digital. But right now, it's not working. So when you say, why are we having this panel, you know, I'm not sure I understand that, because there's clearly an issue here with the way either radio is being programmed on air, but really this should be one brand if you're a radio station or Clear Channel or anybody. It should be one brand with one, you know, programming entity with certain commercials, and obviously you should be able to skin those commercials any way you want and deliver, you know, any of them to anybody however you want via technology. I get that, but you know, I think that what we're talking about is how Pure Play continues to win, and it's not because of the technology. It's because of the user experience.
That's right. We're getting hurt because we are still in our own box, and these other guys are growing because they are ostensibly creating a better user experience. So we have to make other decisions, and maybe those are sub-channels, and maybe those are other brand experiences. But just to take our terrestrial brand and throw it up on the internet and then make it more difficult by putting on crappy Smokey the Bear commercials is not a winning recipe, and we've learned that over the years. So there has to be another way at it, or we'll continue to drift down at that 30% or lower level.
Yeah, if we continue to think of streaming as an extension of the tower, we're playing the wrong game in the wrong ballpark. And folks like the Pure Plays have come with a better product for any given individual, with metrics for any given advertiser, not estimates, but real hard numbers, and are able to therefore draw not a dotted line by inference, but a straight line, and be able to take credit for their results, person by person. And we have to take a very hard look at that and say, okay, what else are we going to do in this space beside run a simulcast stream? And what form does that take? Is that long form? Is that push in terms of, like Steve said, a sub-channel? Is that on demand? Is that time shifting the content like the morning show that we own and have a reputation built on? Are we going to redefine these brands, or are we just going to play radio on the computer?
And that's the tyranny of choice, and it's happening on the television side, which should provide some instruction to us. If you look at the broadcast networks, they're down to, what, below 30% of viewership. They still seem to be vital, and they are smart, but they are changing, and they are learning how to adapt to a world of +7 and video on demand. And what they understand quite well is that they have content. And content has value, and they will figure out over time how best to present that and monetize that. So do we. We have content. We have unique programming. And we get caught in these music discussions, and I want us to remember that we also have fantastic morning shows and talk shows, and we can do short form. Look at NPR, outstanding effort on the digital side. We need to get out of the box of just thinking it's got to be Doobie Brothers records.
Right. Well, there's audience strategy and there's advertising strategy, right? So I think we have enough data to tell us that replicating exactly what you do over the air and expecting to win the war for audience on the digital side will not work, right? And so, you know, this is played out on that side against a host of new technology and new offerings that offer greater choice, greater control, customization to the end user, and hence why the broadcast side sitting with the 30% today. So all of these things you're talking about as content strategies to build more audience on the digital side are things that have to be executed in order to win more audience as more of it moves away from the broadcast side. But the execution on the broadcast side has morphed over the years into something much more about winning in number against the ratings methodology than a pure desire to engage a consumer. And that's why the model in replication online is not working or delivering the kind of market share everybody would want, because the audience has more control and chooses to not want to stay through a 6-second break or Smokey the Bear, as you called it. And some of those limitations that you're talking about are a result of early technology. A lot of companies giving huge pieces of their inventory and fixed allotments to ad networks that could only sell a portion of that and would fill the rest of it with bad-sounding PSAs without the ability of the broadcaster to claw it back or insert a song instead or any of those other things. That is all changing. And so the compete for audience piece is being democratized for you, and it's up to the individual publisher to go after that in a big way and try and build audience. On the sales execution side, I'm not saying that a company like Saga shouldn't put the ability in their individual local salespeople's hands to sell a happy meal, if you will, of broadcast together with digital. I think you should do that, and you should do that as much as you can possibly do it to the point it drives revenue for you. But I don't think it should be done exclusively. I think the whole idea here is to light up lots of different revenue channels and have them compete for the right to deliver the right ad to the right listener at the right time in the right context. And that's the promise of all of this technology and what is happening out there. And so to freeze a strategy based upon a point in time in rapidly developing space to limit yourself, to me, doesn't make any sense. Set them up to sell as much as they can possibly sell, so long as it's accretive to your enterprise, but enable yourself to create competition against delivering that ad and grow your business that way.
Okay.
I just
By the way, Jennifer has a microphone, I think, if I can barely see. Does someone have a mic? We have about 4 minutes for questions. So we'll get to them in 1 second. Natalie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think that program, audience strategy, and ad strategy should be one and are one, and I don't understand how somebody could think that the listener is going to tolerate an over-the-air strategy that has 15 minutes of commercials or 10 when they know exactly which button to press to get either 0 commercials or 1 or 2 or 3. So I am going to just jump out here and say I think it's a losing strategy to not put the streaming broadcast with the rest of the over-the-air and make it one, which goes back to your Arbitron question, and have it in one piece, because that 30% number is going to go down, down, down. If you think that listener who likes you on air is going to go on the stream, they're not going to like you on air anymore. Why would they even go there at all? So I see this whole platform thing as changing.
Okay. Do we have a question? Yes. Okay. Well, I'll start over here, and then we'll go there in a second. Sorry.
It is both amusing and dismaying that Smokey and McGruff are still getting a laugh after 10 years. We've heard that there is now a cottage industry to sell these extra availabilities. There is certainly a cottage industry for the technology to fill these streaming stop sets. Why isn't there a cottage industry for content yet?
Oh, good question.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a cottage industry, but many of the companies in the content creation space for audio are in discussions to provide additional content for the streams or repurpose content for the streams. But I think it brings up another interesting point, which is, and I'd ask this of you, Natalie, if I were inside an agency and I were involved in the creative process, the ad I delivered for over-the-air broadcast radio would be very different than the ad I would create for a one-to-one digital world. And the thought that we would it seems to go against everything that I would stand for as an agency to produce one form of creative audio that is equally suited for a one-to-many delivery and a one-to-one. I don't think there is such an animal, and I think everything that's being done in the meantime is just placeholders till the day this is actually happening. If you look at what's happening rapidly on the video side, you know, they may be adapted from what's happening over the air, but I'm seeing a heck of a lot less 30s out there online than you see on television. And the radio side, you still have a good number of 60s that you guys are delivering. 60 online is insanity.
Well,
Steve?
60 over the air is insanity. Why would some, again, I mean, we continue to think it looks good on paper, but, you know, these people are pressing the buttons and not going to tolerate what the standard is. If the standard becomes a 15 or a 30, that's not going to work. And Mike, you know, about the one-to-one versus the one-to-many, obviously clients want to be as target-specific as possible. But there is no client out there who can create a message for me and for somebody else sitting out there at this moment. It's just not possible. These advertisers have, you know, they have to make decisions based upon targets and behavior and consumer types. It's not one person. And again, I think you're looking at now. In some senses, you're talking about now, but in some senses, you're talking about in the future. In the future, will we go to one-to-one?
I have to tell you,
possibly, if our creative delivery.
Natalie, we do deals every day on the programmatic side where one advertiser might target 6 different segments, and they're delivering different creative to every segment.
Yes, but in
right?
terms of audio, it's much more difficult to do that. In terms of a banner or a display, it's possible.
I'm talking about audio.
Yeah, well, it's not possible for us to deliver 200 million or 50 million different spots for each person. It's just not.
Oh, I'm not talking about truly individual creative, but I'm talking about segmenting a target across a bunch of different lines, and then to everyone in that segment, they're being delivered one piece of creative versus somebody in a different segment.
Right,
Happens
and that's
all
what
day,
the creative,
every day.
that's what we're doing. Our clients are doing it. So let me just share with you, you know, an interesting, we have one of our clients speaking tomorrow at the RAB. We can take, years ago, it used to be one client had a big budget, and it was an adults 18 to 49 target, and that was it, we were done. That same money will now be split into several different targets. So I don't know if this answers your question, Mike, but we're already doing that. For the same brand, the same product, will now have specific strategies for 8 different segments, let's say. We're buying that. We're now buying 8 things, 8 campaigns that we used to buy 1 for.
And we're seeing a similar push from advertisers who are looking for a much more holistic approach. When we talk about being digital, it doesn't just mean serving audio commercials. We are selling texting campaigns, email delivery. We are on our websites. We are doing verticals. And we are doing all of those things to stay on the buy. They are expecting much more 360 from us. And so it's not just about audio commercials. It's about a full integrated campaign.
It's about providing a solution. Yeah.
All right,
Sure, but audio is what you do, right? Audio is in your DNA. It's what's brought the bacon into the building for however many years, and to not compete to deliver audio.
It should be audio plus. Again, I agree with this, that it should be a full campaign that takes advantage of some of the things on the sites that are becoming richer and richer. And then if we can test those things and find out exactly what the combination is for a given advertiser, for richer media, I mean, one of the things that we talk about radio being able to have now is some visuals.
All right. I wish we could go on all day. This is why Jennifer wanted me to moderate. But hopefully you guys can stick around all day. Let's give a round, one more to Alexis and to Mike and to Steve and to Tom and to Natalie. So we really appreciate having all of you up here. Now, John Garrett.